I'm a comedian and they canceled me because I speak facts. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. But you can't make jokes anymore. Nothing is fair game. You can only talk about like 3 things. In my day, we talked about real issues like OJ, Michael Jackson, and Zippergate. You could never make Blazing Saddles today. I record a podcast in my tool shed because nobody watches my specials anymore. I have scars from a Turkish hair transplant that didn't take. I've never lost an argument because I'm too loud. Real men drive cars they stopped making 20 years ago. Like this 2005 Ford Excursion I bought in 2012. Back when stand-up had no rules and companies weren't afraid to sponsor real comedy. I'll never get a sponsorship again, and you know what? That's just fine by me.
This episode of Regular Car Reviews is once again sponsored by Factor. Factor meals are fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved. This is my counter. Yeah, that was a mistake. Thank you so much to Factor for sticking with Regular Car Reviews all these years. This afternoon I'm having herb-crusted chicken. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. I tend to put them in for 3. But you're the chef, you do what you want. I'm serving it on a plate because I'm fancy. But you're fancy too. We got a special offer just for Regular Car Reviews. You get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box. Just use the code 50REGULAR. 50 regular. And that gets you 50% off your first box and free shipping. How cool is that? Oh, look at those beans. I just want to eat all the thing. And don't forget about your vitamins. Don't forget about your fruit juice. Today I'm having apple kale wheatgrass. I think I had this one before, but I'm happy to have it again. So thank you, Factor, for sticking with this silly car show. Once again, coupon code 50regular, 50% off your first box and free shipping. I gotta get into this. And now, back to the Roman report.
2005 Ford Excursion Limited, the official car of Schrodinger's contractor. You won't know if he's reliable until after the job is finished. Ford Excursion Limited, the official car of a husband who steers his way through Thanksgiving dinner so they'll leave him alone during football. 2005 Ford Excursion, an SUV for people who are either 17 or 41. Welcome, friends. I'm the Roman. This is Race to the Bottom, and I am continuing my endless search for a car so irredeemable not even I would enjoy it. And I enjoy everything. Mostly. But a 2005 Ford Excursion? This is the kind of car you see in a Buc-ee's parking lot with a "nobody cares about your stick family" bumper sticker. You get a 6-liter Power-Stroke V8 turbo diesel making 325 horsepower and 560 pound-feet of torque from factory. But this is more like 375 thanks to a 50 horsepower tune that James performed here. It's matched to a 5-speed automatic transmission, and it makes an average fuel economy of approximately 13 miles per gallon, although James gets closer to 10. And really, the trim tells you everything you need to know about this. It's limited. You're working around its limitations because it's big and cumbersome, the fuel economy is terrible, and the 6-liter has a reputation so bad that Windows Vista is telling it to lay low till the heat dies down. Head gaskets, fuel pumps, EGR failures. This engine has just become shorthand for disappointment. And while you could easily defend it by saying these are great engines if you just take care of them and keep an eye on any potential issues, isn't that generally what you're supposed to be doing anyway? And even then, I don't think most people have a binder of service receipts as thick as Infinite Jest. The Ford Excursion is as needy as a spoiled cat, and it isn't just the engine either. James had to replace all 4 tie rods and sleeves, all 4 ball joints, the steering box, the AC unit, the windshield washer assemblies and motors, the heater core couplers, the master cylinder. Did I say the steering box? Yeah, it looks like I said the steering box. It's like somebody put wheels on a fried chicken joint that you need very specific directions to find. For something so simple, the Excursion feels needlessly complicated in terms of what you need to do to make it enjoyable. You have to baby her. No, you have to run her hard. No, you have to give her time. You know, she's got to warm up. She's got to get in the groove of things. No, you can just beat on this until the end of the world and you'll be fine. No, forget all that. You have to think of this as a really finicky passenger car that lifts weights and just discovered stand-up comedy. Hey, check out my set. It's just 24 minutes of crowd work where I ask audience members a question and then repeat their answer back to them in a mocking tone. Hey man, what do you do for a living? I'm in computer sciences. I'm in computer sciences. I'm at a local comedy show. Look at me. Frickin' nerd. Look at your date, dude. Look at your date. You're not getting any tonight. Oh, she's your sister? Toto, I don't think we're above the Mason-Dixon line anymore. Get wrecked, pal. So, driving impressions. I don't know how to describe this experience other than to say it was as inconsistent as cafeteria French fries. There were moments where I felt like I was being trolled, where the car would be perfectly fine one moment and then feel like a broken coin-operated grocery store racehorse the next. You'd have this relatively stable, almost smooth ride, and then you start to feel a stutter, only for the car to go, nah, psych, and then keep chugging along. You'd get hit with this sensation of body roll that made me really wish this had something stiffer underneath, phrasing. But then you'd take a back road with a bit more uneven paving, and it was fine. This really exemplified the idea that you never know what you're going to get with a Ford, whether it's bland consistency, surprising performance, or just straight up disappointment. And yet it felt familiar, as so many Fords feel to me. It's a feeling I get from Ford and almost no other automakers, and let me see if I can describe it because I don't think this is a good thing, but when I'm driving certain Fords, I feel like I'm in the boardroom as they brainstormed it. Everything feels intentional in its design and its build, but in a weirdly cynical way. Like the primary thought here was, what if truck, but not truck? And then the rest of the bubbles on the dry erase board get filled in around it, and screw it, we'll find a way to make it work. Its size makes it impractical for most, its design makes it unappealing, and its handling is a sloshy, uneven mess, even if the power and towing capacity are impressive. Do I wish it gave a smoother ride? Of course, but this has a sagging rear. It's clearly been through the ringer. And yes, I am dubbing this in right now because somehow I forgot to mention this. And yet, I don't feel like the experience would have been materially better had this actually been level. Maybe that's just the cynic in me coming out. It just felt like Ford sat there thinking, we want to build a truck for people who don't like trucks and turn them into truck people so we can sell them an F-Series truck down the line. Welcome to the United States of liking what we tell you. Honestly, I found myself wondering why someone would choose this and not like a Suburban 2500 or a GMC Yukon. And funnily enough, that's exactly why James has this. He missed having a Yukon, but I guess he couldn't find one because he ended up in the driver's seat of this full-size SUV. Which is a weird classification because the concept of a full-size SUV just sounds like a truck to me. It has the towing capacity of a truck, it has the ground clearance of a truck, it has the interior capacity of a truck. I suppose you could take this off-roading, but nothing about its handling and long boy dimensions suggest it was built for that purpose. And even if you did go off-road with it, this feels like the kind of car that would have an expensive repair bill waiting on the other side, taking a potentially good time and turning it into one big, long problem, like a priapism you can't whack your way out of. But there's also a postmodern vibe to an SUV this large. An SUV is nothing if not a merger of different stylistic sensibilities, attempting to appease both the wandering adventurer and the guy who never sees a trail more complicated than the back road to his local harbor freight. But part of the appeal of an SUV, and arguably its most postmodern aspect, is in how it wears the skin of adventure while frequently being sold to people who are never going to take their car off-roading, or test what many SUVs are actually capable of doing. For them, it's enough that an SUV offers the possibility of adventure. In the same way, plenty of people who actually do use an SUV for adventurous things still find primarily emotional benefits in owning one, because an SUV is ultimately a means to an end. The SUV is the means to going on the camping trip, but the end is camaraderie. It's the means to college move-in day, but the end is independence. It's the means to scenic wilderness trails, but the end is peace from a chaotic existence. For some men, an SUV will basically carry them through life, from the rugged individualism of unsexed bachelorhood to the hope of one day having enough hump time to fill all those back seats. The means is the SUV. The end is hope. But this? A Ford Excursion doesn't make sense for wannabe adventurers because it requires too much effort to maintain if you aren't actually going to tow things, if you're not going to haul materials, if you're not going to take it up into the wilderness, if you're not going to do anything more complicated than grocery runs. But then it also doesn't make sense for people who actually do want to be adventurous with an SUV, because it's not fun. It's pure, unfettered utility. This is a work truck masquerading as a people mover. But, of course, you know me. So naturally, I would be lying if I said there weren't moments in which I actually did enjoy myself in this Excursion. It's got good power, it's got turbocharged power, its size will make you feel unstoppable on the road. And the diesel engine, it smells like an ice cream truck, that parfum de diesel that makes you think of rocket pops and really thin milkshakes. Anyone else? Just me? And to his credit, James did a lot of work to bring this up to snuff. This has a 50 horsepower tune, an adjustable air suspension, a 100-gallon auxiliary fuel tank, an EGR delete, and 5-inch exhaust because size matters in games of inches. These fixes go a long way in compensating for the anticipated troubles you'll run into with an Excursion, because I can only imagine how rough this would have been without his hard work. And yet I don't know how much of that initial enjoyment was due to James's modifications, how much of it was genuinely enjoying James's company, and how much of it was the far simpler and kind of unnerving reason that I think I may have a Ford bias. I like Mustangs, I like Thunderbirds, I like Explorers, I like Focuses, I like Falcons, I like Tauruses. I like all these Ford things that a more sensible automotive journalist maybe wouldn't. And I didn't even realize this about myself until I sat down to write this and found myself skewing towards a mostly neutral review, only to think back and realize, you know what? If I remove subjectivity, this really wasn't good. I know that a certain amount of subjectivity introduces itself into any person's opinion on a product, because we all have different tastes. But even if I were to use the most generous reading and give this points for power and interior space and ground clearance and towing capabilities, it's still not a pleasant driving experience. It was apparently a struggle for James to even get it to this level of mechanical reliability. And it's still not what you would call reliable. Now, I say that, but James drove all the way here from Illinois while trailering a Dodge Polara, so clearly it's capable, but I think we should strive for a higher bar than didn't leave me stranded in Ohio. But then again, the Excursion was very much a product of its time. You look at this now and wonder who was asking for an SUV that went too heavy on the HGH, but gas guzzlers have an easier time succeeding when gas prices are lower, obviously. Now, this only lasted 6 years, beginning in 1999 for model year 2000 and ending in 2005. In that first year, it made all the sense in the world to push the Excursion as this big deal. We were on the tail end of the 90s SUV boom, and SUVs were well known enough that people wanted larger variations on that formula. Which is why Chevrolet did so well promoting the Suburban to that crowd, and why Ford chased that same market share. SUVs spoke to people in a way your standard sedan or truck just didn't. They were aspirational. You could almost say an SUV is the perfect encapsulation of human nature. Let me explain. You see, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, but that's not really the way cake works. I mean, that's what the whole idiom is about. You can't eat the cake and then keep it in order to admire it, not unless you're one of those couples who saves a slice of their wedding cake as a souvenir, and even then I can't imagine the idea is to one day eat it. But an SUV says, go right ahead. There's plenty more of the exact same cake where that came from. You can have a family and still be a rugged individualist who can summit hills and defeat rocky terrain. You can be single and still aspire towards a gaggle of crotch fruit with the loved one of your choice. You can haul materials and still have nimble enough performance to feel like you're driving something sportier than the glorified wagon whose pedal you're pressing through the floor. But an SUV this large feels like it removes some of the incentives that a typical SUV provides. A typical SUV doesn't have the limitations of a sedan or the encumbrances of a truck. It's not as demanding as a sports car or as unsexy as a van or a wagon. It isn't as labor-intensive as a classic car or an import. It isn't complicated because it's designed not to be. An SUV is as boring and reassuring as Al Gore's voice. But it has the potential to be more. That's the rub. That's the whole point of an SUV in the first place, to give you what you need while allowing you the freedom to aspire to something more. To tell you this doesn't have to be where you end up, but if it is, you'll be okay. Yet, at the size of an Excursion, it's less about potential and more about actualization. Because if you're driving this, you made a choice. This is where you're planting your flag. You're saying, this is where I want to be. And I kind of admire that, because it reflects a decisiveness that not everybody has when it comes to cars, when it comes to life in general. These are people who know precisely what they want, and it's reflected in their Excursion and in the way they live their lives with this Excursion. And maybe the value of an Excursion is just that. But I still wouldn't call it a great car, and the more I think about it, the more wearying its memory becomes. Normally it isn't that difficult to write one of these, because opinions just sort of pour out of me. But that hasn't been the case here. I can honestly say that in 12 years of writing for RCR, I've never struggled like this before, because I struggle to feel anything about this Excursion. And I get it. Cars aren't always about feeling. For most people, they aren't. They're utilities. They serve a function that is in no way emotional. But there's something slightly upsetting about the notion of driving something like this as your daily. It's like someone made a car out of the first time you heard somebody use the term unalive or corn. That feeling of, ugh, really? I mean, I get why, but really? Just that disappointment of realizing that it's come to this, that you understand the financial imperative behind why someone would say self-delete in their video, but also being annoyed that they're using these infantilizing terms for very serious issues that undermine their gravity, instead of just muting or beeping the word like any self-respecting mid-90s episode of Dateline. And yes, I understand that the irony here is so rich you could pour it over pancakes, but it's really the best way to describe the lingering feeling I had with the Excursion. This is just... ugh. It's like depressing, really. I mean, I could have gotten behind this if it was one of those rowdy, beat-up trucks for the fatherless mischief of good old boys who deep-fry turkeys too close to a standing structure. But this is cold, unfeeling pragmatism. And for some, that's worth admiring, and I do have respect for it in that sense. But even now, I'm having a hard time finishing this sentence because there's an empty space where an opinion would be. It's giving me nothing. Okay, so maybe that's it then, right? This car is a claw machine. Sometimes it's challenging and fun, but for the most part, it just takes your money and gives you nothing. Now let's see where this falls in the rankings. But first...
Hello, you've reached the end of the video. I'm proud of you. If you come this far, I know you want to go farther. RCR's Patreon has tons of more content and all the stuff that I can't get away with on YouTube anymore. It's fun, it's bawdy, and it's extra dirty. And for $1, you get all of it. That's it. Less than the cost of a Costco hot dog. $1, you get double the content. And you know what else? If everybody who watched this video joined our Patreon, RCR would be unstoppable. There's no telling what we could do with your support. So please, go to the Patreon, join it. It's only $1. Thank you so much, and thank you for liking Regular Car Reviews.
Okay, so here's the thing. In theory, by my own standards, this should go in the ass crack of the Race to the Bottom rankings, neither top 5 nor bottom 5. It's not terrible, it's not great, it's just sort of whatever. But I have never, in the history of Race to the Bottom or RCR, run into a car that left me this bereft of anything to say, that gave me so little. The Excursion is rare in the truest sense of the word. It left me speechless. And for that reason alone, it belongs in the bottom 5. But I'm not made of stone, so I'll put it at the very top of the bottom 5, because really, it wasn't that bad. But I genuinely don't like this. So that means my most controversial bottom 5 selection, the 2004 Volvo V70, has graduated from the bottom 5 to be replaced by the 2005 Ford Excursion Limited, followed at number 2 by the 2011 Chrysler Town & Country. Then at number 3 is the 2017 Chevrolet Cruze LT hatchback. The 2019 Dodge Journey is at number 4, and at number 5 is the current leader, with nearly 18 months as the king of the Race to the Bottom, the 2015 Nissan Sentra SV. But even then, I still wouldn't say that we have a winner of the Race to the Bottom. Right now, we just have a leader. A car I liked the least out of all the cars that I've driven, but not necessarily a car for which I found nothing redeeming whatsoever, you know? Now, if you think you have the car that can win the Race to the Bottom, a car so bad that not even I could find any redeeming qualities to it, send me an email at regularcarstheroman@gmail.com. That's regularcarstheroman@gmail.com. We can only accept people willing to drive to us in southeastern Pennsylvania, but if that sounds like you, don't hesitate to reach out. I would like to thank James for volunteering and for being an absolute joy to be around. You really helped us out and gave us an absolutely wonderful shooting day, and it is so appreciated, dude. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, a comment, or sharing the video with someone who you think might enjoy it. And consider subscribing and tapping that bell icon so you're notified for every new video. And lastly, to add to Brian's Patreon plug, for all merch orders from our site linked in the description or on the product shelf below the video, I'll send you a personalized thank you video. No matter how many or how few orders come through, I'm doing this for everyone. I don't care. I'm gonna do it for everybody. So thanks again for watching, for welcoming me into your daily routine, and for supporting RCR. Have an outstanding rest of your week. If you were me, would you buy an Excursion, or would you find something else to drive? a full-size SUV, sort of like a Suburban, or would you find something else to buy? I don't know what you deserve. Do you hope for something nice? Do you hope it's electric? Or do you hope it runs on ice? So don't mind me, I'm just driving excursions. This lousy excursion made by Ford. Thank you for the guitar, James. Seriously, dude.